insurance abide by these regulations. So it's a free-for-all,
Yeah, absolute free-for-all.
So I think about, if you have right now, the pandemic also just made things even worse because in the sense that you have an emergency, your heart, you're feeling these palpitations, you want to go get a doctor, you try to get a doctor's appointment, you're not getting one. What is it? What month are we on? We're on September, you're not getting one until maybe January. So then you're forced automatically to go into the ER because there's no other options. They won't take you anywhere else. Sometimes you can't even go into urgent care if that's even available near you. And you go into the ER and then you get a bill just because you wanted to get a checkup, but your doctor's not available. He's not doing telemedicine. Or maybe they're already booked out and they don't have anything for months. You're not going to wait. You're concerned. So you're going to the ER. You go in for a couple tests. You get a bill that's over $1,000 for nothing. Like, oh, everything's great. The doctor walked in for 2 seconds, said something to you, read it from the paper, didn't have a conversation with you, and walks away.
This is why I don't have insurance.
And this is why you're not an ER doctor anymore.
Well, that's a different story. That was an identity theft issue, but
Okay.
But not having insurance, that's a bold move. I think these days people just, I'm very holistic. I believe in holistic medicine for most part. I really try to avoid going to the doctor. I go for just more of a panel where I know these days there are really options for probably getting that panel done. And, I think about that and I have medical insurance because I have it through my company.
Yeah, but here's an amazing statistic. You know that everybody's that has health insurance is overinsured and overpays because 50% of the population consumes only 2% of the healthcare dollars. It's outrageous. These scare tactics and also the chance of a catastrophic event is very, very small. But people think, I could have the next car accident and, I'm going to, and the other thing, not all health plans are equal. There's an extraordinary amount of junk health plans there. The more affordable, the less you get. You get a lot of peanuts. You get yoga, you get a free meal, you get a free ride, but you don't get cardiac surgery.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little plug in for a couple of organizations that people can look into in order to consider the possibility of getting a private doctor again and of getting catastrophic coverage without having to pay for insurance. So I personally have a health sharing plan. There's many, many health sharing plans. Some of them are religious, some of them aren't. I'm not going to name the one that I use, but all of them charge about half of what current insurance charges, and they only cover catastrophes. And because it's not actually insurance, there's no guarantee. But as we all know, there's no guarantee with the current insurance. They refuse to pay the bills anyway.
Exactly.
They refuse to pay the doctors anyway. So essentially, they have a list of things that are covered. All of the catastrophes are covered on my plan. And then I have a DPC doctor. I have a direct primary care doctor. And that person, I pay a monthly fee, $75 a month. And I almost never have to talk to them. But when I have a problem, I text them and they get back to me. And I'm not worried anymore. And in the case of, chest pain or whatever, things like that, they could say, come into my office in the morning based on the history. And they could say, come for another, visit tomorrow and we'll check on you and we can get the labs and things like that. Where if you go into an urgent care, you don't know if you're going to see the same person the next day. And so it makes it impossible to actually properly care for people. Medicine is about a relationship between a doctor and a patient, and that relationship is what's been disrupted.
The other big problem with the insurance-based industry is that it has absolutely stripped healthcare decision-making from the consumer, the patient, and also from the physician. Physicians can't even order a test or a treatment without calling the health plan and having to talk to some non-medical intermediary and get an approval. All these barriers that the insurance industry puts in place are designed to stop spending money on healthcare and so that they can keep the profits.
And that's what you were saying about where the $1 trillion, the third of the overall spending is being spent on all this extra stuff.
Garbage.
It's just that phone call that has to happen, with people making probably decent money, two people on the conversation having this call, and that's where those hiccups are coming from.
Yeah, and a lot of the consumers or the public, they have no clue as to how the insurance companies screw physicians, how they play these games with changing the codes, making sure that all the codes are on their claims filing business. Then they lose these claims. I mean, there's tons of games going on there. Then they downcode them. Then they want to see the records. Then they want a clawback, which they can do up to 18 months. So there's
How do you
just
keep a practice open like that?
endless games.
And I've seen
you
that a
have to
lot
have-
with the dental industry.
Right.
They're the easiest ones to
You have to have the
pickpocket
personnel
at.
to respond.
I call them uncompensated administrative burdens. They put these uncompensated burdens on these private offices, and you no longer can survive with the one, admin. You have to hire 10 people
Yeah.
to respond to these requests, and that costs money. It's a theft of services. What other industry can you get the services and not have to pay for them and then wonder if you're going to be paid for the services that you've rendered? It's an outrageous situation. It's pushing good doctors away from practicing medicine. It's causing extreme burnout. This is National Suicide Awareness Month, so I want to bring this up. The physician suicide rate is higher than any other profession. We used to hear about postal workers.
Yeah.
We used to hear about dentists. Now it's physicians. Doctors are killing themselves at the highest rate of any profession. They're choosing to die by suicide rather than to continue this moral injury that they're being forced to do just to be able to keep their head above water. This is a very serious problem.
It's insanity, and how people can justify health care for all when it means that they're justifying enslavement of physicians, because the physicians are being totally exploited. Their professionalism, their knowledge is totally exploited by these health insurance companies. They're making the money.
And I feel that on our side, we feel it in the sense that, like, I'm, I keep going back to my example because I struggle with this often. Like, I remember I went to a doctor, this was a couple years ago, and, it was a recommended doctor. And when I went and I started saying, hey, I decided to become vegan, I suffer from migraines. A year into becoming vegan, I realized that my migraines had gotten better, which I've had since I was 12, where I lose my vision, my lips go numb. Like, it's very serious. I've tried so many different things. But by the way, becoming vegan has helped. And his reaction was like, yeah, I don't think so. And I just felt constantly insulted. And I'm like, well, this is not an experience catered to me, and I'm spending so much money. What happened? I stopped going to the doctor because, and I was still paying the money because you need to have it for an emergency is what we're told, right? So the money is sitting there. I'm paying this. I don't go to the doctor because I completely disagree with the beliefs of the experiences that I've had. If I'm telling you it's working, why don't we sit down and have a discussion? What other changes do I need to make in my life? Like, I don't believe that it's catered to us either. We're just we're being lumped into what can you pay, and you all go under that section. It's not catered to a real experience. You can't have a real conversation with a doctor. It's really tough. So you're hindering yourself, as well as just this money is being wasted because it's just sitting there in case you have an emergency, which you don't even know what possible emergency that could be.
Again, it's about the personal relationship, and I'm really sorry that you had that experience because it's not indicative of the way most physicians practice medicine. Most physicians want to take that extra 5, 10, 15 minutes and really dig into what's going on. The problem is when you're employed, you're being forced to hurry up and churn as many patients out as possible. And if you don't meet your quota, you're going to be fired. So when you use your insurance, you're essentially choosing to work with physicians who are going to rush you. And it's very rare that anybody can survive in private practice taking insurance in that kind of environment because of all of this uncompensated administrative burden that Dr. Vortman has talked about. So, in my opinion, the answer is find a private physician.
Yeah,
Pay
I want
them-
the unfiltered advice of a doctor.
Yeah. 'Cause
I want to know the knowledge that you bring to the table without it being filtered through all these layers of different things, of whether it's the insurance, of whatever. I want it to just be your unfiltered, hey, by the way, you can go do these panels over here. You can order this and do this however often you want. Why don't you try this other experimental? I want to know what those options are. And I feel like you get like the public, just like with the social media thing, the one that everyone is talking about. Oh, go do this, take that. And it just becomes like, I just think about like healthcare these days and I'm like, that's just such old news. It's like, it's so antiquated.